Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. Oh, man. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for coming here and getting your news on YouTube instead of watching those ridiculous war profiteers on mainstream media. It's unbelievable. I mentioned this in an earlier video, but I wanted to go into all of it. Henry Wallace, who was the vice president under Truman and then the secretary of commerce under, he was the vice president under FDR and the secretary of commerce under Truman, gave a speech in 1946 urging for peace. He started to see the Cold War really ramp up, and with the atomic bomb, he was like, this is dangerous. And here we are in Red Scare 2.0. And people are pushing from the right and the left. I mean, these people, I can't even call them on the left. If you want war, and you're not a liberal if you want war. You're a pro-choice warmonger. I mean, we're so numb to war, we just throw it about and bandy it about. Yeah, well, we should go to war. Yeah, we got to bomb them. Just nobody understands because we don't see war on our front doorstep. So we don't think it matters, or it's not real. We don't see the horrifying effects of war. Because you know what? Rachel Maddow didn't do videos about the 26,171 rockets that Obama dropped because Boeing buys ad time on MSNBC. So Henry Wallace, who was pushed out in FDR's third term at the Democratic Convention, and FDR wrote a letter to the Democratic Party ahead of the 1940 convention and said, don't go right. And the Democratic Party muscled Wallace out, muscled out the progressives and the pro-peace people in favor of the more hawkish Truman. So this is the Secretary of Commerce urges peaceful coexistence with Russia. I want to read excerpts from his speech that he gave at Madison Square Garden in 1946. And when he gave this speech, the FBI started tracking him and said he was a problem. He was all Russia, Russia. It's unreal. It's unreal. Henry Wallace, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's vice president and Secretary of Commerce under Harry Truman, delivered this speech to a gathering of leftist and liberal groups in New York's Madison Square Garden in 1946. In it, he urges taking a more conciliatory approach in America's foreign policy towards the Soviet Union. In contrast to Truman's increasingly get-tough rhetoric, Wallace insists that peaceful coexistence represents the best policy in an era of atomic warfare. I don't think people realize this, like Russia, war, like get Putin. I don't like Putin, but World War III ends life on Earth, right? It just turns life into a horror show. Like you're not running around getting lattes and going to brunch with your Hillary supporters, and you're not doing that. That's all over. You're not on Twitter blaming everything on sexism. Truman, however, viewed the speech as undermining his foreign policy and asked for Wallace's resignation a week later. This is what you got in 46 for speaking out, and you're still getting it today. Remember when Obama in the debates in 2012 against Mitt Romney said, Mitt Romney was talking about, we need to do something about Russia, and Obama said, hey, the 1980s called, it wants its foreign policy back. Remember that? Being scared of Russia was what people on the left, what liberal Democrats said was ridiculous, outdated policy that only warmongering Republicans wanted. And now, and again, me saying this doesn't mean I love Putin and I'm so glad Trump's president. Don't like Trump, not a fan of Putin and his policies. He seems like a pretty rough, brutal dictator. Seems like he abuses the law, but so does Trump, and so did Obama, and so did Bush. Here's some excerpts. Anybody talking like this? Is the Secretary of Commerce talking like this? Did Joe Biden ever talk like this? I know Mike Pence isn't talking like this. Did Hillary ever talk like this? Tonight I want to talk about peace. Oh, really? Out of the gate, he's going to start that hippie nonsense. And how to get peace. Never have the common people of all lands so longed for peace. I bet you they long for peace in Venezuela. I bet you they long for peace in Yemen. I bet you they long for peace in Afghanistan. You know, a war we've been in for over 17 years, the longest war America's ever been in. I bet you they long for peace in Gaza. I bet you they long for peace in Iraq. Yet never in a time of comparative peace have they feared war so much. During the past year or so, the significance of peace has been increased immeasurably by the atomic bomb, guided missiles, and airplanes which soon will travel as fast as sound. We cannot rest in the assurance that we invented the atomic bomb and therefore that this agent of destruction will work best for us. He who trusts in the atom bomb will sooner or later perish by the atom bomb, or something worse. Find me where anyone in Trump's cabinet has said this. Find me where anywhere in Obama's cabinet said this. Obama gave that speech to the UN in 2011 or 12 where he just said America basically is going to do whatever the hell it wants. And Democracy Now! Covered it and they were like, whoa! But now anyone that brings up not wanting to go to World War III with Russia is a Russian asset, is a Putin lover. I'll tell you this right now, people who've never been to war are the ones that want it the most because they've never seen it up close. I will never know what being in combat or the infantry is. I never have seen that. I don't know what that's like. I'll never know. I have seen war kind of more up close than most civilians. Been on a helicopter that came under fire. I've visited numerous wounded soldiers, Marines, airmen. I mean, I've seen people with prosthetic limbs. I've seen this up close. So when I hear neoliberals smear progressives online, I just ask, so you want war then? You're happy that there's people with prosthetic limbs? Because you know what it is probably with the neoliberals? They didn't grow up in a small town, you know, where the factory closed and people had to join the war, had to go back to Iraq because the military was paying them $20,000 re-enlistment bonus because they, you know, there was no jobs for them. They were sitting there working at some. They don't have to deal with that. These Hollywood people that are, I know what kind of money they make in Hollywood. And if they work for one of the unions, they have a union pension plan and union health insurance. They don't have to worry about $15 an hour. I know people that went to nice private high schools and stuff, and when 9/11 happened, their whole high school didn't join up. The working class joined up, because that's who fights the wars, the poor and the working class. Not the ruling class. The ruling class and their children, they don't fight the wars. But guess what? In an atomic war, we all lose. That's what Henry Wallace is trying to say. We must earnestly want peace with Russia, but we want to be met halfway. Oh, so he's not just kowtowing to the Soviet Union. We want cooperation, and I believe that we can get cooperation once Russia understands that our primary objective is neither saving the British Empire nor purchasing oil in the Near East with the lives of American soldiers. Gee, he was warning us about it back in 1946. Purchasing oil in the Near East with the lives of American soldiers. Well, that's what we've been doing. Since the 90s, we've been doing that in the Middle East, purchasing oil with American soldiers. Once again, billionaire oil companies are using American working class and poor sons and daughters to go fight in wars so that they can get oil and profit from it. Henry Wallace was warning us about this 70 years ago. Russian ideas of social economic justice are going to govern nearly a third of the world. Our ideas of free enterprise democracy will govern much of the East, much of the rest. The two ideas will endeavor to prove which can deliver the most satisfaction to the common man in their respective areas of political dominance. Under friendly, peaceful competition, the Russian world and the American world will gradually become more alike. The Russians will be forced to grant more and more of the personal freedoms, and we shall become more and more absorbed with the problems of social economic justice. If you got to learn something about Russian history, the czars being attacked, Russia, we lost 400,000 people in World War II. 400,000 soldiers died. Military folks died. U.S. military members died in World War II. Russia lost 27 million people. Because once again, World War II wasn't fought on our land. We didn't lose any civilians. The Nazis didn't occupy part of Chicago. There were not nightly bombing raids in New York City and Philly and Dallas and Denver and Seattle. That didn't happen. It did happen to Russia, to the Soviets. They lost 27 million people. Again, I'm not saying Stalin was some teddy bear. He did a lot of awful, awful things, but look where Russia comes from. So he's talking about, and the link is in the show notes, read the whole speech because he talks about the history of Russia. And what are they supposed to do? We're stacking up troops on the NATO border. We've got the biggest military on the planet. They've got to be a little like, oh shit, look what America is willing to do. We don't come with peace. We sit there, we're the equivalent of a guy driving a Humvee in front of your house, you know, cleaning it and with guns and a grenade launcher right in front of your house going, man, you better not threaten me. What if you saw some guy like that in front of your house with all these, and his buddies with guns, and they're all like, man, you better not mess with us. We're just protecting you go, this guy's nuts. This guy's out of his mind. So I guess I better buy a gun. Again, not excusing any of the awful things Russia or the Soviet Union have done throughout history, any of the awful things Putin has done, but we've done a lot of awful shit too. So do you want peace? Or do you want your children or grandchildren to live in a post-apocalyptic nightmare from an atomic war? I don't know. I'm just throwing out some options. Because look where we're in right now. What he was talking about in Truman's rhetoric. Russia propaganda machine discovers 2020 Democratic candidate Tulsi Gabbard. They're already saying, this was an NBC. And while I still am asking questions about her ties to Hindu nationalism and the BJP, and I don't think she's answered those questions yet, and I'm going to keep asking those questions. When I see shit like this, it makes me want to really back Tulsi Gabbard. It really does. Because when the war machine lines up against you, then you must be doing something right. When both parties and the corporate, this is NBC, which of course we know is Boeing buys ad time, Raytheon buys ad time, the oil industry buys ad time from them, and there's all these former intelligence experts on their network. So this is what they're doing. And in this article, experts who track websites and social media linked to Russia have seen stirrings of a possible campaign of support for Hawaii Democrat Tulsi Gabbard. So that means she must be a Russian operative. That's what they're saying. And they put this in there. Sputnik. Will Tulsi Gabbard shake up the 2020 Democratic primary? You might say, Graham, Tulsi's not for me because that 2014 video of her being conflicted about torture, or the interview I did with Peter Frederick about Hindu nationalists and her getting money from people that are Hindu nationalists, those might be reasons for you not to vote for her. And that's fine. The fact that they're smearing her this way, because she's talking a lot of anti-interventionist. Anti-interventionist is bad for the bottom line of the war machine. That's why they're saying this. So be a student of history, folks. Watch Oliver Stone's The Untold History of the United States. You'll learn a lot more about Henry Wallace. Read his whole speech that's in the show notes. And like, subscribe, and share these videos to wake people the fuck up. That there's a war machine that needs us to be in war. And it is killing this country. It's killing the world. And whenever somebody says, how are you going to pay for Medicare for all? How are you going to pay for, say, no one ever asks how we're going to pay for defense spending. No one ever asks how we're going to pay for Space Force. No one ever asks how we're going to pay for a new bomber. Is anyone asking how we're going to pay for the F-35, the $1.5 trillion boondoggle? That money pit we keep chucking money into? Has anyone ever asked that? No. You're smarter than that. That's why you get your news here. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share the videos.